Hey, chat. We are at the final boss, or rather, the final color, or lack of color. We are at colorless. We did multi, we did white, we did blue, we did black, we did red, and we did green. Now we're on to colorless artifacts and lands. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. All right. Because a very wise person said to me once, you got to do it, even if just because. All right. For the YouTube stuff, don't forget the best way to support the channel is like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right. We do stuff live. We're about to start a semi-competitive casual podcast about Magic stuff. And so many of the links and socials and everything will be in the description below. And those are the best ways to support the channel. Now, without further ado, all of these videos of the set review are constructed playability and potential. There are no limited, and we're not going over every card. We're just going over the ones that I feel have constructed playability or have the potential to be such. I have put some cards in here that are for the commander players and some limited things that I thought were just, these are going to see they're limited bombs, as in commons and uncommons. But without further ado, here we go. Arcane Proxy, 7 mana, 4/3, artifact creature, wizard, prototype. This is the mechanic that is the coolest kicker mechanic I have seen in a long time. Prototype. You may cast this spell with different mana cost, color, and size. It keeps its abilities and its types. So, prototype, 2 blue, 1 colorless. It comes in as a 2/1. Instead, it's a blue card, and it's a wizard that's a 2/1 instead of an artifact creature that's 7. When Arcane Proxy enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Arcane Proxy's power from the graveyard. Copy the card. You may cast this copy without paying its mana cost. So this card, in my opinion, is obnoxious. All right. So if you cast it for the prototype cost, all right, the moment you cast it, like announce you're going to cast it and it's the prototype cost, it is mana value 3 when it hits the battlefield. All right. The moment you cast it, it is 7 in your hand. It is 7 everywhere. If you cast it for 3, it's a mana value 3 when it's in play. If it goes to the graveyard, it is not a 3 anymore. So that's how prototype works. So when you cast it for 3, it's mana value 3 because you're paying the alternate costs and it's getting those costs when you cast. All right. Now, this card is very good. It's a wizard. All right. It's a 2/1 generally. And then sometimes it's a 4/3. The reason I'm like over the moon for this is because in older formats, it casts See the Truth. So you draw 3 cards. And in standard, you're not bound to instant or sorcery cards. So you can cast Obliterating Bolt, 4 damage. You can cast Cut Down. You can cast Infernal Grasp. And there are other spells that you can cast off of that. And then if you ever get to 7, then now we're starting to get to that point where you're casting 4 and 3 mana spells. Yeah, it keeps its type. So if you cast it for the prototype cost, all right, it is no longer a 7 mana spell. All right. You cast it for 3. It is a blue artifact creature wizard 2/1. So when you cast it for blue, all right, I'm pretty sure it's a blue card when you cast it. So like you can dispute it. like in Explorer. I'm pretty sure. But I won't know until I see the Gatherer. Because it's outlined in blue, which means to me that when you cast it for that, it turns into that color. The moment you announce you're casting it for blue, it's a blue card. Still an artifact, still a wizard. It's just mana value 3 and it's a 2/1. Yes, and it can be vanishing versed. All right. If you cast a prototype spell using the prototype ability, it keeps those characteristics until it leaves the battlefield. The 3/3. If you copy it, copy it. Yeah. We're that's like in 5 cards. Or actually 11, but whatever. Yeah. So all the other prototypes, you cast it for that color, it's that color when you cast it. And it's that way until it leaves the battlefield. All right. This card is a 2-for-1. All right. 2 mana and 1 mana stuff. This also, I don't know if it's going to be good, but you're able to play this with in Alchemy. I know I just said the A word, or digital formats with Mentor's Guidance. This can be cast with Expressive Iteration. So like, this card is like, I can't tell you how good this card is until I get to play with it. All right, I think this is the best wizard to copy stuff out of the graveyard. Like, remember how everyone thought that Seagate Stormcaller was going to be good? Like, it was the next Snapcaster Mage. All right, this is the next Snapcaster Mage. Okay, Seagate Stormcaller is the worst 2-drop ever. Right. Arcane Proxy. Okay, there's the OG. There's Snapcaster Mage. There's Fatcaster Mage, which is Torrential Gearhulk. And this is Slowcaster Mage. All right. All right, next. Autonomous Assembler. 5 mana. Artifact Creature Assembly Worker. 4/5. Prototype 1 white, 1 colorless. 2/2. It becomes white. Vigilance, tap 1, tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on target assembly worker you control. I don't care how good all the artifact creatures are. Okay? All of them that have prototype are good. All of them. All of them. That are rares and mythics. All of them are good. Play this. If you're in white, play it. If you're playing artifacts, play it. Unless there's better versions or better things to do at 2 mana. And so far, all these prototype rares and mythics are good. All of them. Even 5 for a 4/5 that has vigilance is still good. And putting a +1/+1 counter on an assembly worker, this counts, obviously, is good enough. There are a couple, I think there's a land that becomes assembly worker or makes assembly workers. It also works with Mistress Factory. It also works with Changelings, and because it's a creature type. So, yeah, card's good, especially at 2. And these prototype cards are all good because they scale. As in, you can play them at 2 on early. It's kind of like playing reverse kicker or reverse bestow, or those cards that have, they're basically reducing costs to make it, scaling down to the rate that it is. Blade Coil Serpent, as opposed to Stone Coil Serpent, 6 + X. Artifact Creature Serpent, 5/4. When Blade Coil Serpent enters the battlefield, for each 2 blue spent to cast, you draw a card. For each 2 black you spend to cast it, each opponent discards a card. For each 2 red you spend to cast, it gets +1/+0 and trample, or it gets +1/+0 and gains trample and haste until end of turn. I don't really care about the red. Although if you're playing Grixis, you're probably playing this anyways, like a 2, a 1 or a 2. But I want to play this for 8 and do the double blue and double black to draw 2 and make my opponent discard 2. You want to know where to spend all your color mana on? It's this. It does seem like a commander card, but this is Grixis. This has Grixis written all over it, right? 2 blue, 2 black, quad blue, quad black, you know, or just pay 6 mana. And that's why it has the X to pay 10, 12, you know, whatever. Where you're getting a 7/4 and they draw 2, you draw 2 and they discard 2. Like, yeah. I'm a little sad that it's a 5/4 instead of a 6/5 or a 4/5, but hey, whatever. Beggars can't be choosers for a mythic like this. It's good at everywhere on the curve. Like 6, 8, 10, doesn't matter. Yeah. But it counts even if you don't pay X. Only good in standard though. This isn't good in any other format because you got to pay colors. Cityscape Leveler, 8. Artifact Creature Construct, 8/8. Trample. When you cast the spell, whenever Cityscape Leveler attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone. Unearth 8. Chad, I got a question. All right? And maybe you can answer it. Why does this card that is named Cityscape Leveler cannot target lands? Can somebody answer that for me? Because OMG, why the hell does this not hit lands? For 8 mana, I should be able to hit lands. When your name is Cityscape Leveler. Like, look at the damn picture. He about to level a city. I should be able to level lands. I'm just saying. You gotta cast it. All right, you can't blink it, and you gotta attack with it. If you want to talk about how you can, if there is a thing to use with your Power Stones, this is it. It destroys anything, and they get a Power Stone, and the majority of your opponents are not going to be able to use your Power Stone or use their Power Stones. So, and it has Unearth. So, at the very least, you're getting a 2-for-1. At least. If you ever untap with this and attack with it, whew, over the moon. Only in standard. Limited, bomb, draft, bomb, everything. Clay Champion. 4X. Construct 2/2. Clay Champion enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it for each 2 green spent to cast. When Clay Champion enters the battlefield, choose up to 2 other target creatures you control. For each double white spent to cast Clay Champion, put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. All I want to do with this is play this in hardened scales, but in standard, chat, is this thing busted? Like, if you're playing mono white, is this card just not straight busted? Where you're putting effectively, 6 power on the battlefield, right? On 2 creatures, hopefully they're huge. On soldiers, or you're playing the green-white artifact deck, the artifact aggro deck with this. Like, there's so many cool things you could do with this. Like, yeah, I'm into this all day. More than the blade coil serpent. I'm more into this than that. I just want to give people the beatdown with this and Patchwork Automaton, and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, it has X, but it's a 4-drop. It's just insane. I don't know if this is going to be good enough in older formats like Explorer, but I want to play with this in hard scales. Combat Courier, 1-drop, or a 1 for a artifact construct, 1/1. Tap 2, sacrifice, draw a card, unearth for 1 blue. So I put this in here more of a, if you need an artifact, here it is. And if it dies, you can bring it back and draw a card with it. I don't know if this is constructed playable, but it has potential. And don't dismiss 1-drops that enable your plan that synergize with it, because we've done that before with 1-drops, especially when you just need a 1-drop, and this almost fits the bill, especially if you're drawing 2 cards off of it and you need like synergy when you cast an artifact or whatever. So I'm not saying that every artifact or every standard deck will play this, but it's good enough, I think, close enough to BC play where you're unearthing it to draw a card. Is it good enough? Wait to be seen. However, I think it has enough going that it's at the common level to C play. And the artifact strategies only, though. It's not just going to be C playing everywhere. Haywire Might. 1 colorless for an insect. 1/1. When Haywire Might dies, you gain 2 life. If you pay a green and sacrifice it, exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. So why is it non-creature? This card's good though. Like very good. But it's non-creature. So like you can't get rid of the artifact creatures.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do too much.
I told you.
Oh, yeah.
I said I could have done it.
I know.
It does tag Fables, but so does Tears. It tags the vehicles if they can't, they can't get them. So the cool thing about this is it could see play early, and then if they play like Reckoner Bakebuster or whatever, they don't get any value off of this. Like that seems very good. But again, I think if you're playing this, like it's like I said, you're synergizing with the idea that you're playing artifacts already. So like if you're playing Tears, you're probably not playing this, and vice versa. And of course, people in Modern are going to try to play this. Hits Urza Saga. Liberator Urza's Battlethopter. Yeah, try saying that 3 times. 3 colorless, legendary artifact creature Thopter. Flash, flying. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. When you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast the spell is greater than Liberator Urza Battlethopter's power, put a +1/+1 counter on Liberator. Is this good enough on rate for 3 for a 1/2? Probably not, but it has flash. And it says colorless spells. All right. So that counts for, like, say, I know this is way, way, way a lot. But like if you cast, Ulamog or Ugin or whatever, that counts, right? You know what else counts? The devoid spells in in Pioneer and Explorer. I'm not saying it's good enough, just those are colorless, right? And then the only way I see this being relevant is the play pattern of this card is like this. So you play this on 3 on the opponent's turn, right? then you untap and then you go 1-2. And now it's a 3-4. Right? Here's the problem. If you're not playing your 1s and your 2s on 1 and 2, what are we doing with this? Like, there are a lot of keywords and a lot of cool things going on in this card, but like, it's a fucking 1-2. Like, for 3 no less. And even if you spend like a 3 and a 1, it's a 3-4. But it's The only thing that has going for it is obviously it has flash, but it flies. So like you're not getting screwed out of like, oh, you'll never connect with this. But again, like I said, I wish that it was not a 1-2. Like I think this thing could have been a 2-3. Cause like, I don't know. It seems like you would want to not want to hold your 1s and 2s, for example, to make that happen, right? So I got nothing. But you know what is cool? The damn art. This art is amazing. And it's a cool card to boot. Like even if you don't play it, like it's cool. The design is cool. What it wants you to do is cool. This is a standard playable card only. Like I know I talked about the Explorer or the Pioneer cards like from Devoid and all that crap, but come on now. I will say it does survive. It does survive the initial cast of Kozilek's Return, where it deals 2 damage to all creatures because it gets the +1/+1 counter when you cast it, and it's a colorless spell. Which I don't know if that's relevant. I'm just saying that's a thing. Perennial Behemoth, 5 colorless beast, 2/7. You may play lands from your graveyard, unearth 2 green. So I forgot why I put this card on here. Because this seems bad. Maybe not in older formats where you put this in your graveyard and then you unearth it and you play a land from your graveyard, but in standard, this seems really bad. Because it doesn't say play an additional land, it just says play lands from your graveyard. I could see this in older formats because it has unearth for 2, where you just put this in your yard or you discard it, and then you play it and you play like Urza Saga, or, you know, when we ever get flagstones in historic or something where I'm able to play lands from my graveyard, but on its face with no utility lands, this thing is bad in standard. I don't see anywhere where this is relevant outside of those that play a lot of utility lands like Saga or, you know, flagstones or any land that you need when you cast it or whatever. So I'm skeptical about this being in standard, but in older formats, just the fact that it has unearth and it's only 2 is more relevant because of how cheap it is to unearth. Here's the Phyrexian Dragon Engine for Mishra. All right. 3 colorless artifact creature Phyrexian Dragon, double strike. When Phyrexian Dragon enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. Unearth for 2 red and 3 colorless. So it only is a 3-drop that it's a 2/2 with double strike, unless you unearth it, right? If you unearth it, then you get the value. There is no other value other than it's a 3-drop 2/2 with double strike. Now, what I want to do with this in standard only is to play this, then the next turn I turn it into an Embercleave and I put Draconic Destiny on it. So it becomes a 3/3 with double strike and it flies. And effectively I just did 8 damage because I'm going to pump it to 4. The problem with that is you play this on 3 and then you play And then you play Mishra on 4, because Mishra costs 4. And Mishra reads, you know, when you attack, you do all the cool stuff, right? You attack, for how many creatures you're attacking with, opponent loses X and you gain X. But, yeah, you have to be attacking with both these creatures, right? So that's the thing that sucks, is you have to make all these things happen and both of them have to attack, right? I'm pretty sure that it would be busted if only one of them had to attack, but you own and control both of them. That'd probably be too good, in standard especially. Excuse me. I think this card's good enough on its own, like without the other, but just having that extra having that extra mana value stuff that it has on Earth, and it's the same. And then having Mishra attached to it is kind of relevant. And the cool thing is you're not afraid to play this on curve, because if it dies, you're playing Mishra next turn anyway. And then you're unearthing it and attacking, because unearth gives it haste. And then when you meld it, it's not Phyrexian Dragon Engine anymore, so it doesn't exile when the turn ends. So, excuse me. So yeah, I think the Mishra one is actually better than I thought it was. Initially after I read Mishra and this, so I think Urza is the worst one, like by a smidgen, and I'm gonna say why here when we get to it. Like they're comparable. All right, next, Phyrexian Fleshgorger, 7. Artifact creature Phyrexian Worm. Prototype 3. It's a 3/3, 2 black, 1 colorless. The OG is a 7/5 Menace Lifelink Ward. Pay life equal to Phyrexian Fleshgorger's power. Chat, this prototype is so good. Like, so all the prototypes are good, right? This one is obnoxious, all right? It's already good on raid for 2 black and 1 colorless. So mono black or 2 color decks, right? It's a 3/3 Menace Lifelinker. In order to kill this thing, you either have to block it or you have to pay the power, all right? If you cast it for 7, okay, now it's a 7/5. Good luck killing this thing, because you're going to have to pay 7 life to do so. This card is the only card I think that, and the green one, this card is the only one that I'm afraid of, because there are ways to blink this. And if you exile it, right, I think this is the only prototype that has that doesn't have a cast clause, right? So like Arcane Prodigy has a cast clause. I think there's like 1 or 2 that also have a cast clause. This one doesn't. So like if you blink this, it comes back. It's a 7/5. Like that's insane. Yeah. So that's what people are going to try to do in older formats, and I think that's why it's a 7/5. So that, yeah, like that's what I'm saying. So like you pay the prototype cost, and then they try to kill it, and you 4-wins it after they paid the prototype or paid the ward, which is 3, and then you blink it and you bring it back into play, and now it's a 7/5, and then you do it again. Like obviously it's not the best. Just you can do that with these cards, where you prototype them and then you blink them and they come back as their big selves, right? But this one, like, it's just good on rate on both sides, and it attacks well, it blocks well, and the ward is kind of like, you know, you're doing a lot of damage, man. And that's what I was talking about with the black decks, right? The mono black deck. Like, look at this curve, right? You got Sleeper Agent. You got another 1-drop, like Cut Down or some other one, right? Then you got Tenacious Underdogs, and you got there's another man. What was the other 2-drop? The Shade. Then you got the 3s are Graveyard Trespasser and this, and then your 4s is Shieldred and Sorin if you play it. 5 is Invoke Despair. 6 is Corrupt, and then you have this at 7. That's an insane curve. And all of them scale. Like, the black decks are going to be so good. Like, those are going to be the average decks, is what I'm saying. Like, oh, man. This card's very good. Platoon Dispenser, 5 for a 4/6 construct. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more creatures, 2 or more other creatures, draw a card. 1 white, 3 colorless, create a 1/1 soldier artifact creature token. Unearth, 2 white, 2 colorless. Curve Topper that gives you soldiers. I think this is a bigger card for sideboards. That gives you some more draw. But I think this is more of a commander card than anything else. But I can see this seeing constructed play. This is a limited bomb all-star, like draft, sealed, whatever. And it just makes soldiers. And the reason why I said this is probably going to see constructed play in standard is because it makes soldiers. And you could put it in your sideboards for like going bigger in the soldier decks. But that's about it. I don't think this sees play anywhere else. Portal to Phyrexia, 9 artifact. When Portal to Phyrexia enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to other types. Chat, this card is scary. Because you're not casting it for 9. You're cheating into play. In standard, you're putting it into play with let me be sure, because I am 95% sure that you can do this because that's what it says. But I'm gonna look just to be sure, because fact checking is insane. Yep, Invoke Justice says return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So in standard, you're invoking this, okay? In Historic, in Explore, in Pioneer, all right, you're either using the same tech, or you're using Indomitable Creativity. All right. This card's scary because you don't have to cast it to get the effect, which I'm pretty sure that's what it should have said. Like if most of the artifact creatures have cast clause, this card should have definitely had it. Considering that the whole point of playing the standard format is with the Power Stones, this should have had cast clause, right? For the sacrifice clause, not for the creature card stuff. That doesn't matter. What matters is that making your opponent sacrifice creature, because you can blink this too, right? And creativity, it's not legendary either. So you creativity 2 of them, now you're getting 2 creatures from the graveyard. Like, this card's scary to play with and to see across from the battlefield. Like, you don't care about putting, what's the card called? You're not caring about putting Sanctuary Wardens in the battlefield when you're gonna lose a bunch of creatures to this. So I think that's sideboard tech though. When they're playing like a bunch of big creatures, you just sideboard this in and like get rid of the whole board, and you start putting it into play and start getting value the turn after. But this card seems very scary. It's not a commander. It's not just a commander card. You're able to invoke this, which is kind of scary, or creativity it. I think that's the only ones like Pioneer in standard. Not sure about any of the older formats. Razor Lash Transmogrant. 2 colorless zombie which is actually kind of a relevant creature type. Artifact creature 3/1. Razor Lash Transmogrant, can't block. For 6, 4 colorless, 2 black. Return Transmogrant from your graveyard to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. This ability costs 4 less to activate if an opponent controls 4 or more non-basic lands. 4 non-basic lands is easy in standard. Also in Explorer too, because there's so many dual lands. So like, you know, flip lands in Explorer or Pioneer, Modern too, but they play basics too. So, because fetch lands, this also isn't, it's not a sorcery, so you can do it at any time. But in standard, there are a lot of non-basic lands. Triomes or the tri-lands, the slow lands, the pain land. There are so many non-basics that I think you could get this to cost 2 relatively easily, or cost 2 to recur. And 6 doesn't seem like that hard or that much of an ask. So, and coming back as a 4/2 is kind of relevant. The only thing that sucks is it can't block. But all of these artifact 3/1s that cost 2 really never blocked. And it's a zombie, so now you know why it can't block. But yeah, mostly for standard, not so much for Pioneer. Maybe for Explorer, it's kind of like a 1 or a 2 of, but it is a zombie, so maybe that might be relevant, but because we still have... Do we have that card in this format? Yeah, Champion of the Perished is still in this format. All right. So it's from Innistrad. So we do have that. All right. Champion of the Perished and this, and we still have some of the other Innistrad zombies too. So maybe zombies could be relevant. I'm not saying... I think soldiers is really going to be the aggro deck of the format. So, or mono white. But like, there's so many options. Root Wire Amalgam, 5 colorless. Artifact creature Golem, 5/5. Prototype, 1 green, 1 colorless, 2/3. 2 green, 3 colorless. Sacrifice Root Wire Amalgam. Create an XX colorless Golem artifact creature token where X is 3 times its power. It gains haste until end of turn. Activate as a sorcery. Chat, this card is absurd. All right. At 2 mana, it's a 2/3, which is already good. And if you ever get to 5 mana, you get to sacrifice this and make it a 6/7. Or a 6/6, excuse me, with haste. If you get this to a 5/5 and you sacrifice this, it's a 15/15 attacking. Now, granted, it doesn't have trample, but this card is absurd. Yeah. Again, all the green artifact cards are good. All of them. And all the prototypes are good. The rares and the mythic ones. This card is very good. And it basically has that I can kill you from anywhere stage wherever you play it. If you play it on 2, or you play it for the prototype, you play it on 5, or you find a way to put it back into play, whatever, right? And yeah, both rates are, yeah, this card's absurd. Also played with all the artifact stuff. Like I said, this goes with the Patchwork Automaton artifact aggro deck. And if you somehow put +1/+1 counters on it, when you sacrifice it, if it was a 5, it's huge, right? Become a 20/20. If it's a 2/3 and you put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, it still becomes 3 times X, where X was the power when it checked, right? So yeah, all good. I'm not sure all of these prototypes are good in older formats, but I know Arcane Proxy will be, because the spells get much cheaper and more efficient there. However, these big green creatures, you are better, you have better spells or better creatures at those rates. But in standard, these cards are so good. But yeah, artifact aggro, even green aggro. There's many aggro decks that you're playing with this. Green, red. And that's the beauty of these cards, right? They could be played in anything. It could be played in any aggro deck. It doesn't have to just be green. It could be green, red. It could be green, black. It could be green, white. Hell, it probably could be green, blue for all we know, right? So, yeah, it's just... These cards are so flexible, and that's what makes them so good. Simian Simulacrum, 3 colorless ape, 2/1. When Simian Simulacrum enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Unearth 2 green, 2 colorless. So it's a 4/3 for 3, and when it comes back, it could be bigger or get your creatures bigger. You can put it on any creature, but generally, I'm imagining that you're putting these +1/+1 counters on itself, but you can put it anywhere. And here's the kicker with this card. The reason why I put this on here is because in both Explorer and in Standard, you got the Ocean Dissident, which every time an artifact enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So you can get an additional +1/+1 counter from it. And Patchwork Automaton is getting +1/+1 counters when you cast an artifact spell. So like you can get your artifact creatures huge while also making them big enough to withstand the block, right? So these artifact creatures that give counters are all relevant, and not just in one format or one deck. They could be in there. It's good on its. The reason also I put it is it's good on its own, meaning that you're getting a 4/3 at 3, and then you're getting a 4/3 for 4 at the very minimum. Once you start adding bigger creatures, is when you start adding this. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. So like you go Scales on 1. Hangerback Walker on 2, Simian Simulacrum on 3. Now your Hangerback Walker is like a 6/6. Yeah, possibly. Unsure. All right. Skitterbeam Battalion, 9 colorless, construct 4/4. Prototype 2 red, 3 colorless, 2/2. Trample Haste. When Skitterbeam Battalion enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens. They are copies of each other. So if you cast it for the prototype, you're putting 6 power on board for 3 creatures. If you pay 9, you're now getting 12 power on board. Trample Haste, 4/4s. I think this card is actively bad because you have to get, it's a cast trigger. And this is what I was talking about with the mythics, right? So Arcane Prodigy is a cast trigger. Skitterbeam Battalion is a cast trigger. But Phyrexian Flesh Gorger is not. And that's kind of disappointing. In that Gorger can be blinked, but the other ones cannot. And I think this is the worst one. Not saying that it's not actively bad in the sense of like it being the worst. It's just like it needs to be cast, and it cost $1 million. Right? So, OMG. All right. My bad. My bad. Oh, cool. That's Naruto's thingy. Wife was talking to me. Okay. My bad. But yeah, I think this is like one of the worst ones. Not saying that it's actively bad, even though I kind of said that, but you got to cast it. Now, these cast triggers incentivize you, especially this one, incentivize you by playing Power Stone. So if you can accelerate into the 6 power on turn 4, maybe, then maybe it's good enough. But I'm not sold on this card just yet. If you can, I'm not sure yet. There isn't, I don't think. Not without paying mana. Like when you cast it. Slagstone Refinery. 4 cost artifact. When Refinery or another non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield or is put into exile from the battlefield, create a Power Stone token. So I put this in here strictly for its combo potential in older formats, mainly with Emery and mainly for Emery in Explorer, Historic, Pioneer, and Paradox Engine, and in Modern with other artifacts that do the same thing, that create Power Stones. Mainly for Paradox Engine, so that when you cast something from the graveyard, you're getting a Power Stone, but you're also untapping stuff when you cast, right? So you can space those triggers. So where you get the Power Stone and then you let the engine trigger resolve second, and then you untap your Power Stone. So that's the only reason I put this on here. I don't think this is anywhere remotely good enough in Standard. I think this is a combo card, strictly in Commander and in Historic, Explorer, and Pioneer, and maybe Modern, but I think it costs too much. And if there's other ways to utilize this, but you can sort of get that thing, right? And the way you do it is you use like Mox Amber to put into the graveyard, and you keep doing it, casting for 0, untapping, casting for 0, untap. Yeah. And the second one's going to the graveyard. Spectrum Sentinel. 1 colorless artifact creature soldier 1/2. Protection for multicolor. When a non-basic land enters the battlefield under opponent's control, you gain 1 life. This card also is a soldier roundout. Protection from multicolored is kind of funny because the majority of the removal isn't. But I don't think it matters in Standard. I think it'll matter in older formats if it sees play there, which I don't think it will. But the flavor text of non-basic lands entering under the opponent's control is relevant, given that if you're playing against another aggro deck that's playing more colors than you, that gain life aspect might come in handy. And protection from multicolored against multicolored decks might actually also be relevant. So it's also an artifact. Steel Seraph. 6 cost artifact angel. 5/4 prototype. 2 white, 1 colorless, 3/3. Flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Again, these prototypes are all good. This is a 3 cost 3/3 that has flying and can target itself to give it vigilance or lifelink. And if you're playing a low to the ground deck, now you're giving another creature flying or lifelink or vigilance. And again, all these prototypes are good. They're all good creature types. They're all on rate. And they're mostly good for monocolor decks, but some of them for multicolor. And Steel Seraph, again, is make no mistake, a 3/3 for 3. If you're able to put +1/+1 counters on these artifacts, they get really, really dumb real quick. So, and of course, all of them are artifacts, so Power Stones help to cast them, even if they have colors attached to them. So, it's going to be really hard to find out what cards are good, better than others, because all of them are good, right? So, it's really, really hard to decipher, and that's Chad, I've said this a number of times, I'm going to keep saying it. There's so many cards that are just good that it's really hard to parse through what cards are busted and what cards are not. And like even the cards that I said they're above rate and are like pushed to the moon, they're not like busted. They're like good cards that potentially could be very, very good given the format context, right? And they're all like that. There's no card right now that we've went through that's just like, oh my God, this is like the best card in the set. It's not even close. Like all of them are good and it's not close. All of them. And it's going to be, and I like the idea that this set gives a round out to you have to make choices given the metagame each week. And that's just the coolest thing about Magic when standards are about choices and not all the cards or all the decisions are made for you, right? You have to pick and choose your slots and not just your main deck, but your sideboard slots as well. And all of them are like that so far that we've went through. And not even the ones that we didn't talk about. Surge Engine was spoiled like at the very beginning. This is a 2-mana 3/2 construct defender. When you pay 1 blue, Surge Engine loses defender and gains this creature can't be blocked. When you pay 1 blue, 2 colorless, Surge Engine becomes a blue card. Has the base power and toughness of 5/4. Activate only if Surge Engine doesn't have defender. And then you pay 4 colorless, 2 blue. Draw 3 cards. Activate only if Surge Engine is blue and only once. So, people made fun of this card, and I'm here to say that this card is actively good. It's a 3/2 for 2, which is on rate for every card. And the fact that blue gets a 3/2 for 2 is kind of is almost a meme because all of their creatures are all like high toughness, low power. This one isn't. And I know it's not a blue card, but it eventually becomes blue. And the only way to get to that is to pay blue mana. There is something in here that makes it like you can really, really punish a lot of decks, right? And it's the part that says this creature can't be blocked. It's always like that. It loses defender and can attack, and you can't block this creature. So if you ever give this creature like double strike or, whatever, right? It can get really dumb real quick. And I understand it's an artifact and it's very easily dealt with, but it's a 2-drop. And it's good by itself. It doesn't need to get to 6. It's just like Resident Sleeper or Sleeper Agent. If it gets there, you're already ahead. And if you killed it, you're using your removal spells on cheap stuff, so my bigger stuff is better. And all these level up mechanics, these scaling cards, and all of them do this. All the scaling matters. And again, it's an artifact, which comes into question every time. Is this good enough past standard? Probably not, because it dies to Bone Crusher Giant, which is highly annoying. But again, if you're playing another color outside of blue, say red or green, where you're playing Kumano or playing green that gives +1/+1 counters, or white that does the same thing, you can negate a lot of that fucking drawback. And that's what makes these cards so good. In standard and in older formats if it's possible. And in older formats as a 2-drop, it's still a creature, so you can play stuff like, Claim to Fame and many other creatures or many other spells that bring it back. Teresian Mindbreaker 7, Juggernaut 6/4. When Teresian Mindbreaker attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded up. Unearth triple blue, 1 colorless. I put this in here because a lot of players love mill, and I don't know why. But Historic has Brovek, and I'm pretty sure it works with this. If it doesn't, then this card's absolute garbage. But milling half their library is a lot. Like, at minimum, it's like 25 cards or 20 cards, right? So it goes from 20 or 40 to 20 or 50 to 25. And I don't know if it's good enough. I just know that it's not a blue card. It just costs blue. So you can't dispute it. And you don't really care if it gets unearthed, right? You don't care if it dies and gets exiled because you're wanting to mill your opponent out. And milling them 20, 25 cards at the end is kind of relevant. It's also 6 damage, which is nothing to sneeze at. So it's kind of like partial removal while also, like for planeswalkers and stuff, while also milling your opponent out. This is not standard playable, and that's about it. Like, I got none of those. If it doesn't work with Brovac, then this card's absolute trash, and I shouldn't have put it on here. There it is, chat, in all its glory. The Might Stone and Weak Stone. 5 cost legendary artifact Power Stone. When this enters the battlefield, choose 1. Draw 2 cards. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Tap, add 2 colorless. Mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. The reason why I said the Urza one was kind of okay is because these curve together. So like you cast Urza on 3, and then you cast Might Stone and Weak Stone on 4, and then next turn you play a land and you pay 7 and you activate, and on turn 5 you have Urza, the Planeswalker. Also, the Might Stone and Weak Stone, one of the more prevalent creatures in the format is Shieldred, and this handles Shieldred on the draw and on the play. So that's one of the reasons why initially I said the Urza one was better than Mishra, but then after I read Mishra, I was like, Mishra is very good. So if you're curving into these cards, they're good, but if you don't, then But you can get to Might Stone and Weak Stone early without Urza with 1 Power Stone, right? But if you have Urza, it curves. The curve is, turn 3 Urza, turn 4 Might Stone and Weak Stone, turn 5 you have Urza. I wonder if that's good enough in Explorer. It might not be, but it might be playable, might not be. But I want to try it. As in turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Urza, turn 3 Might Stone Weak Stone, turn 4 Urza. Is that good enough? I don't know. We're gonna find out. We're gonna meme the hell out of that for sure. Because I love playing powerful stuff. What? Yeah, who cares? But this card's good on its own. And if you're able to blink it, because it doesn't say when you cast it, it's when it enters the battlefield. Stasis Coffin, I put this in here because this is a Karn target in Explorer and Pioneer, and it's a 3-cost legendary artifact. Tap 2, tap it, exile it. That's the reason why I said it's a Karn target, because it exiles itself, and you gain protection from anything until your next turn. So essentially, your opponent can't even attack you when you activate this on your turn. And when it exiles itself, you can cast Karn and keep doing it. And you basically, I think there's a combo where you just keep playing this and they get a turn, but they can't target you or attack you because creatures is everything. Damage. This card doesn't seem good enough in Standard. It's kind of whatever. It's more for older formats, especially with Karn. Same thing with the Stone Brain. 2 colorless, legendary artifact, 2 tap, exile. Choose a card name, search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with the same name. Exile them, that player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled this way, activate only as a sorcery. Again, Karn target. Interestingly enough, not that it matters in Standard, but interestingly enough, you can target lands and even basics. So like forest, island, plains, whatever. You only get to get 4 of them. But imagine somebody, splashing a 3rd or 2nd or 3rd or 4th color, and they're only running 1 basic. You can get that basic. Little niche, little target with this, but being able to hit lands, typically you're not able to hit lands, but this one you are. So Karning in the mirror to get Nykthos might be relevant. Maybe, maybe not. But this being able to hit lands is very, very interesting. Thran Spider, 3 colorless, artifact, Spider, 2/4, reach. When Spider enters the battlefield, you and target opponent each create a tapped Power Stone token. 7, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in your bottom of your library in a random order. I put this on here as a 2/4 with reach. Very good. In the majority of the time, if you're playing artifacts and your opponent isn't, the Power Stone token doesn't really matter to them. So it's kind of like you're creating value and you're just giving them something they can't use. However, with a bunch of stuff that activates for one colorless, I'm a little skeptical, especially in older formats where Power Stones tokens might be relevant. And in standard, I know they'll be relevant given where the standard format is. So maybe not. But giving yourself a Power Stone token, and if your opponent can't use it, that's a big plus for this card. Transmogrift's Crown, 2 colorless, equipment, equipped for 2 or a black. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. When equipped creature dies, draw a card. So power down a lot by a lot. Skull Clamp. This one draws a card, not 2 cards. But spending a black instead to equip to give +2/+0 is nothing to ignore. The question is 2 cost equipment too much? We did see in older standard formats where having the ability to equip at a different cost, at a cheaper cost at certain tribes might actually be relevant here. But the fact that you can do this for black is very good to okay to good for aggro decks. I think black has a little too many ways to draw cards, in that you got the enchantment that draws like a Dark Confidant ability, and you got Resident Sleeper. I keep saying Resident Sleeper, and I mean Sleeper Agent, and many other cards that do the same thing, and this just adds to that. I think this is better as a multicolor card as opposed to just being mono black, but mono black has many options and all of them are relevant. So, all right. Next, and finally, Urza's Silex. So instead of Karn's Silex, now you have Urza's. 3 cost legendary artifact, 2 white, 2 colorless, tap, exile Urza's Silex. Each person chooses 6 lands they control. Destroy all other permanents. Activate only as a sorcery. When Urza's Silex is put into exile from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, search your library for a planeswalker, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. That flavor text might matter, but I put this in here because it's another Karn target. I don't think this is relevant in standard, but again, half of these artifacts that say exile become Karn targets, Karn the Great Creator targets in older formats, and this is one of them. And when you're able to produce multiple different colors in those decks, then it's possible to use this. Now, to be fair, hold on. I think it's only colors that you have, right? Like, I'm not making this up. Okay, yeah, it's to that color, not any color. All right. So maybe it's not relevant in Karn decks, but in Explorer, possibly, as in they have to splash to make treasures or whatever. But still, being able to have this option is enough. And searching for planeswalkers is always good. All right. We're going to quickly go through the lands because this was the last artifact. So this is Argoth, Sanctum of Nature. Notice it's non-legendary. And I know Wizards has said they want to stop making legendary stuff, especially lands. But why did you make the New Capenna, or not New Capenna, but made the Kamigawa lands legendary and not this? This reads, looks, feels, and is a legendary land, but it isn't. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. Tap for a green land, or tap for a green mana. And 2 green, 2 colorless, tap, create a 2/2 bear, green bear creature token, then mill 3 cards, activate only as a sorcery. So it's essentially a Castle Ardenvale, except for green. Makes 2/2s instead of 1/1s. Excuse me, but you mill. That mill 3 cards is relevant because when you tap and mill this and you mill and you have Titania out, if you mill land, you gain life. So they synergize with each other. And obviously, when you have both of them, flips and makes Titania and all that stuff. Blast Zone gets a reprint, and that art is amazing. New art. Blast Zone comes into play. Add a charge counter. Tap Colorless, or tap 2x, double X, put X, and tap it, put X charge counters on Blast Zone. And then 3 tap, sacrifice Blast Zone, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. Was relevant a little bit in old standards, but not that relevant. I assume it'll be the same here because it's not X or less. It's just mana value equal till the number of charge counters. So it's already in Explorer, Pioneer, and Historic, so not really a relevant reprint, mostly. Demolition Field, land, tap for a colorless. 2, tap, sacrifice, destroy target non-basic land in opponent controls. That land's controller may search their library for a basic land, put onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You may search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. I don't understand why they made this. Somebody said it's because of Commander, because Field of Ruin doesn't work, so they made this instead as a complementary piece. Sure. Good for quality of life for other formats, especially Commander. Here's the land, though, chat. Fortified Beachhead. As Fortified Beachhead enters the battlefield, you may reveal a soldier card from your hand. Fortified Beachhead enters the battlefield tapped unless you revealed a soldier card this way or you control a soldier. Tap, add blue or white. Tap 5, tap this, soldier you control, get +1/+1 until end of turn. Chat, when I saw this spoiled, I was excited because not only does soldiers get a land, but I figured all the major tribes, so goblins, zombies, merfolk, or all the major tribes in this standard format were going to get a land, and then they said they weren't. I really do not like when tribes get lands of their own and the cycle is not completed. It just feels like they're trying to power up a certain archetype, and this is what I was talking about when there's no choices made. So essentially the soldiers deck is already made for you, and you're getting an additional untapped land. Now, I'm not upset that they got the land. I'm just irritated that they get a land, but like red-black goblins doesn't get a land, or blue-black zombies doesn't get a land, or any of the tribes different from, the blue-white soldiers deck. Because this is essentially telling you that your soldiers deck needs to be blue and white, essentially. And as long as you control a soldier, you have an untapped dual land. You have basically Tundra. That also synergizes with your deck. Like, every tribe in this format that is a tribe, that is supposed to be a tribe, tribal deck, aggro decks in here should have gotten this. Or something close to it, is the only thing I'm saying. But this land is absurd. So, if you're playing soldiers, you're playing this. 4 of, non-negotiable. Hall of Tagsin, 1 land, rare, tap to add colorless, 1 tap, add mana of any color, 4 tap, create a Power Stone token. I put this land on here as a meme, as a joke. This card sucks, and you should feel bad for playing it. Next, Mishra's Foundry, land, tap, add a colorless, tap 2, Mishra's Foundry becomes a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn. It's still a land. Tap 1, tap, target attacking assembly worker gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It's not Mishra's Factory, but there are some assembly worker synergies in the set. One of the artifact assembly workers that does the same thing, put +1/+1 counters on it. So this also helps. Very good land. Takasia's Dig Site. Tap, add a colorless. Tap 3, tap, surveil 1. So they're adding, much like with Hall, they're adding these lands that are utility lands that get value off of you having Power Stones. So like if you have nothing else but you have these lands, good on you. But most of these are just bad. But I wanted to showcase this one to show that, hey, you know, these lands have colorless in them, and you can use power stones to activate these. So your power stones, so like Hall is like your really, 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 really inefficient way to create colored mana for your power stones when you couldn't use them before, is essentially what they are. And that's what this land does. And if you need to surveil to get lands off the top of your library and you have power stones, extra mana handy, here you are. And then we got the rest of the battle, or the untapped lands, the pain lands. Battlefield Forge, Brushland, Land of War Waste, and Underground River. And that's it. We made it, chat. We made it. A little bit longer on this video than the others, but we made it. Socials on the bottom, YouTubers. This was it. The majority of these will probably be available starting tomorrow into Monday and Tuesday, and will probably most likely be available before the 10th and the 11th, which is a Thursday and Friday, for the early release or early access event on Arena on those days. Don't forget, as in the beginning and in the end, support the channel and support the stream. Socials are on the bottom to all the social media and streams and places to get in contact with me. Not to mention supporting the YouTube and supporting the channel, the Twitch channel that's in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe. If there are cards in any of the reviews, the constructed reviews that we have done that I didn't talk about, don't hesitate to put in the comments below, or get at me on Discord or Twitter, which will, all of those socials and many more will be in the description below. And tell me what you think are some of the constructed playable cards that maybe I didn't talk about or you think should be on this list. All right, that's it. All right, we'll get some talking going on for the Twitchers, but that's it for the YouTubers. That's it. All the colors, everything was done, and I will see you hopefully sometime soon. Laters.